Mental illness is a monster, a demon of all demons that eats away at its victim from the inside, attacking the mind and everything you thought you knew. It tightens its grip on your reality and forces you to become vulnerable, dependent on anyone around you, and sometimes that state of vulnerability can be preyed upon. When a person is in need of help, it's our instinct to reach out and help them, especially when that person is a loved one. But sometimes we're not in a position to help, and we have to call on others for assistance. When Tacona Donald Sullivan received a phone call from her grandson on February 1st, 2024, he sounded clearly scared and distraught. She could immediately tell he was not acting like himself. She felt that he may have been experiencing a nervous breakdown. But he was in Kansas City, Missouri, and Tacona was more than 3.5 hours away in St. Louis. The worried grandmother did the only thing she could do at that moment. She called on others for help. This is the case of Tamontez Hurt, and this is Gone in a Blink. Hey, true crime fans. I'm your host, Heather.
And I'm Danielle.
And welcome to episode 18 of Gone in a Blink. I hope all you fathers out there had a wonderful Father's Day, and even if you don't have any bio children of your own, however, you play a positive role in someone's life, or maybe you are a father figure to someone out there, you are certainly celebrated. So today's case is one that has not received a lot of media attention, and we're hoping to help change that. Today, we are talking about missing 19-year-old Tamontez Hurt out of Kansas City, Missouri. So if you're ready, let's jump right in. Tamontez Hurt was born in St. Louis, Missouri, and later moved to Nashville, Tennessee with his mother, who was in search of a better life for Tamontez and was looking to better herself as well. Tamontez was close to his grandmother, Tacona, and so he would come back to visit during the summer and also on holidays. Then in 2017, Tacona witnessed her son, which was Tamontez's father, get killed. And this naturally devastated Tacona, so Tamontez went back to St. Louis to stay with his grandmother for a while. And Tacona eventually began to develop PTSD from having seen her son get killed. And so Tamontez ended up going back to Nashville, and it's unclear how Tamontez's father was killed, but it was definitely pretty traumatic. And so Tamontez went back to Nashville, and in 2023, he graduated from Hunters Lane High School in Nashville. Tamontez had a love for life and a passion for playing basketball. So after high school, he moved back to Missouri and began attending Western Missouri State University, which is located in St. Joseph, Missouri. And he attended that in the fall of 2023, where he lived on campus. And St. Joseph is about 4.5 hours west of St. Louis. So by the time spring semester rolled around, Tamontez did not have the money to enroll for another semester. So he decided to take a semester off and get a job to save up for the next semester at the university. By February 2024, Tamontez was living in the tiny town of Grain Valley, Missouri, and he had found work at the local Price Chopper, which is a local grocery store chain in the Midwest. And I didn't find any information as to what led Tamontez to Grain Valley exactly, so I'm not sure what brought him to that location. I don't know if he had friends or family in Grain Valley, but Grain Valley is approximately an hour and 15 minutes southeast of St. Joseph, where he was attending college, and just under 3.5 hours west of his hometown of St. Louis.
To me, that seems kind of weird that, if he's going to school in St. Joseph, but then living in Grand Valley. Do we know if he has any connections to Kansas City, Missouri?
I don't know as far as family. I know that he has some friends in Kansas City, and I think that's kind of what brought him closer to the Kansas City area. But as far as Grand Valley, it's such a small town. I mean, it's cheaper to live there than it would be in the heart of Kansas City. So it could have been a money issue thing. You know, he was trying to save up for another semester of college. So it could have been that. But I haven't found anything that stated that he had connections to Grand Valley. But Kansas City thing, yes, he has friends that live in Kansas City. On February 1st at around 3 a.m., Tamontez's grandmother, Tacona, received a FaceTime call from Tamontez that seemed incredibly strange. He claimed that he was calling from a woman's house in Kansas City who he had just recently met. And according to an article by NBC News, Tacona described her grandson as not sounding like himself. He said, quote, "Granny, just pray for me. Pray for me," unquote. Tacona told NBC News that her grandson told her that he thought he may have been drugged. He was talking to someone else in the residence and saying, "What did you lace me with?" Tacona also told the Kansas City Star in an interview that during the video call, her grandson was talking like a baby and had been addressing a younger woman that he had gone to visit, as well as another man who was at the residence with them in Kansas City. And Tacona thought it sounded as if Tamontez was having some sort of mental breakdown. So while she was still on the video call with him, she managed to call 911, and police and an ambulance was dispatched to an address in the 3900 block of Baltimore Avenue in Kansas City, Missouri. Tacona was still on the phone with her grandson when medics arrived, and Tamontez was then taken to St. Luke's Medical Center, located a short distance away on the Country Club Plaza. Tacona stated that she estimated Tamontez to have arrived at the hospital sometime around 5 a.m. Once there, he was evaluated and a urine test was performed. However, a nurse working at the hospital informed Tacona that nothing was found in his system. The hospital informed Tacona that they would have to discharge Tamontez because they had no reason to keep him there. And after speaking to her grandson again, this time from the hospital, Tacona felt that Tamontez was still acting extremely strange. And this was very concerning to her. So she asked the nurse if they could keep Tamontez at the hospital until she could get to Kansas City from St. Louis. And by this time, she was very, very worried about her grandson being alone. And she felt that the hospital would be the safest place for him until she could reach him. However, hospital staff refused to keep him there, and so he was discharged.
Now, I'm putting myself in this grandmother's position. You get a video call at 3 a.m. from your grandson. That is a red flag right there. And then he's talking, like a baby. And he already wondered if he was drugged and was just saying, "Pray for me," and all this, that I would absolutely be terrified. The problem that she has there, though, he's 19. So it sounds like the ambulance saw enough wrong with him to take him to the hospital. So, that shows that there was something there. But then, strangely enough, they didn't find any kind of drugs in his urine.
Right. And he had only been at the hospital for a few short hours, is what I've read. And he's acting strange. He's acting very off. And they didn't find anything in his system. So then that makes me think, I agree with her. Maybe he was having some sort of mental breakdown, and they probably should have kept him a little bit longer to check his mental state instead of just letting him go. And the rest of the story will prove that the hospital made a horrible, horrible mistake in not keeping him there. So they did, however, tell Tacoma that they would call a rideshare service known in the area as Z-Trip.
Did you say Z-Trip?
Yes, they offered to call a Z-Trip and have him taken to the Greyhound bus station, where Tacona agreed to purchase a bus ticket that she could have waiting for him to head back to St. Louis. So, and I guess if they're going to discharge him, she's probably like, okay, get him in a cab, get him to the bus station. I will go ahead and purchase the bus ticket. If he can just get on this bus, then I will be waiting for him at the bus station when he arrives, because her hands are really tied. She's too far away to do much, and she's having to rely on other people to help her out. So she's trusting the hospital. She's trusting this rideshare company, just get him somewhere safe. So Tacona spoke to her grandson on the phone one last time to tell him that she was going to book a ticket for him to catch the bus back to her place in St. Louis, and he could stay there with her. And she never spoke to her grandson again. She tried calling him back several times after that, but got absolutely no response. According to the police, the Z-Trip driver picked Montez up and drove him to the Greyhound bus station at 1101 Troost Avenue in Kansas City, Missouri. However, he never boarded the bus. Instead, surveillance footage shows the Z-Trip driver pull into the Greyhound bus station to drop Montez off. He gets out of the cab and tries opening the bus station doors, but they are locked. And apparently, it's been reported, and I did not know this, that they close the bus station at certain times of the day. Did you know this?
So I think I kind of know a little bit of that as far as because of the location, that it's kind of crime ridden. Now, what I'm confused about, maybe the inside of the bus would be locked, but are they still picking up people? Like, say he had a 12 a.m. Greyhound bus. Would he still be able to board that or no?
Well, no, I believe that this is in the middle of the day or early on in the day, because if he arrived at the hospital sometime around 5 a.m. ish, and he wasn't kept for maybe 2 or 3 hours tops. So by then it's sometime in the morning, maybe around noon. I don't think it's past noon when he arrives there.
So you're saying that maybe about 11, 12 o'clock in the daytime, the Greyhound bus was closed?
Yes. And so he is caught on surveillance camera, and he gets out of the cab, like I had mentioned, and tries opening the bus station doors, but they are locked. And once he realizes that the doors are locked, like anyone else would do, he goes back to the cab in an attempt to get back in the car. But he can't get back in the car because the driver locked the door. And the driver is not opening the door for him. And then the driver just speeds off. And Montez's phone was still inside the cab. And that was later picked up at the Z-Trip station by Tacona once she arrived. According to a post from the Kansas City, Missouri Police Department, he was last seen on February 1st, 2024 in the area of 12th and Troost Avenue and was believed to have been walking in the area of 77th and Troost at 1:30 p.m. So see, this is early on in the day. I've never tried to board a bus I've never been to the bus station, so I didn't know that they just randomly closed the station doors. Especially, I could see like late at night maybe, but this would have been early.
Right, late at night. Yeah, that's what I thought you were talking about. But yeah, that makes no sense to me that during the day. And if she was able to buy a ticket for him, then it sounds like a bus would be coming.
Well, and I didn't understand either why the Z-Trip driver would drive off. You know, I mean, was he not paying attention? He or she, I don't know if it was a male or female, but were they not paying attention? When he walked to the doors and noticed they were locked, the Z-Trip driver was still there. I mean, you can see, and I will find the video. I will post the video on our social media. But he goes back to the car to try and get in. And even if you're not going to let him back in, at the very least, give the kid his phone or something.
Well, so that instance I can believe, because with Z-Trip drivers, taxi or whatever, you'd be surprised at the stories of people that all the kinds of foul play with that. So locking the doors, I'm sure if he already seemed kind of off, then man or woman, they could think that he was trying to get a free ride, or once he gets into the car, it gets hard to get them back out. But I guess I wonder if he realized that he was missing his phone at this point. I'm sure if he would have said something, hey, my phone's in there, the driver could have at least looked.
Well, that's true too. And I mean, maybe the driver didn't realize that the phone was still in there, and maybe he was like, had that mindset that you're already out of the cab, buddy. You're not getting back in this cab. But it's unfortunate because I'm sure the Z-Trip driver noticed that he tried the doors to the bus station and they were locked. So I don't know. I think it's kind of dirty just to leave him there, but I don't know. So Tamontez had walked at least 8 miles down Troost Avenue without his phone or any way whatsoever to contact his family. And a frantic Tacona headed to Kansas City that same day and immediately began searching for her grandson. She filed a missing persons report with the KCPD, who informed her that Tamontez did not meet the criteria, which is insane and happens way too often when you're trying to report a missing person. And this to me is so strange because what exactly is the criteria for a missing person? Is it because he is 19 years old and technically an adult? Were they trying to give her that same BS that maybe he left on his own free will and doesn't want to talk to anyone? I mean, come on.
I think that's exactly what it is that if they are missing less than 24 hours, that he left on his own free will. I bet that they could even justify from the video, oh, well, he tried the doors and they were locked, so he just went walking. But obviously, I mean, there is something going on here.
Well, and if they just piece together just what's on the surface, he was picked up from a hospital in a cab and taken to a bus station that was closed. He had no other ride. And it's even clearer in the surveillance video that he's trying to get back to the cab. He was literally just left. So this isn't something that looks like he just wanted to walk off and not have anything to do with anybody. And the key part of this whole scenario is that he was in the hospital. And I'm sure the hospital was given a little bit of background. I mean, by the EMT. Actually, I know that's what happens. They are given a little bit of the background of what they walked into as EMTs, and they knew obviously that he thought that he had been drugged. Okay, but did they not think that he was acting really weird? Maybe he wasn't acting really weird around them. Maybe it wasn't as obvious to them as it was to someone that really knows him, like his grandmother. I don't know, but this doesn't take on the type of thing that you would expect from somebody that just wanted to walk away and just get away from everyone.
Well, and that's what's hard is that we obviously know from his grandmother that he felt like he was drugged. I have seen it before, though. By the time they get into the hospital and they do all their blood work and all of that, that maybe whatever he was drugged with was out of the system by then.
I know that I have found reports that his grandmother, Tacona, really felt like they should have done more of a psychiatric evaluation on him before just turning him loose. So a missing person report was finally taken the following day on February 2nd. According to Officer Elena Gonzalez, who is a spokeswoman with the KCPD, this was the day that police were notified of Tamontez's disappearance. So she's saying, hey, we didn't even know about it until that next day. So you kind of got some conflicting info. I don't know. I think she's trying to save her tail too. But it was reported, though, that a flyer wasn't distributed to local media or posted on KCPD's social media until March 27th, practically 2 months after his disappearance. Tamontez's grandmother is not happy with the lack of media coverage in her grandson's case. And I can't say I blame her, to be honest. It's funny how some cases grab national attention while others are left on the back burner with little to no coverage at all. The case of Riley Strain had been brought up and compared to the case of Tamontez Hurt, and how Strain's case gathered quite a bit of attention while Hurt's case garnered very little. And this type of thing is really sad to me. And for those of our listeners that may not be familiar with Riley Strain's case, Riley Strain was a 22-year-old Missouri University student who went missing in March after leaving a bar in Nashville, Tennessee. 2 weeks later, his body was found in a nearby river. While I do think that Riley's case deserves the attention it received, I believe that every case deserves that much attention, no matter what the victim's gender or race or sexual preference or economic status is, period. Every single missing person's case deserves the same amount of attention. Captain Jacob Bacina, a spokesman with the KCPD, stated in an interview with the Kansas City Star that, quote, each case is different and the investigative process is determined by detectives on the case. KCPD shares information that investigators request be shared with the public at the time they ask for it to be shared, unquote. I really don't understand why some cases grab national attention and they receive a ton of media coverage, and then there's some that you don't hear about them.
It's really hard to say. I mean, I wonder if family had went to the media or if it was the police that had went. And I do agree, though, that every investigation process is different. However, everybody, whatever your sex, race, however, I totally agree that everybody deserves to have people there to support them, to look for them. And that's the number one way to do that is through media coverage.
That's absolutely right. And I do think that Riley Strain's case deserved the attention that it got, but I also think that Tamontez Hurt's case deserves that same attention in every other case. These are families that are missing their loved ones just the same, and it doesn't matter. None of that other stuff should matter because they're a human being. But unfortunately, that's not how it happens. And that's exactly why we're here, to try and help get that out there, and keep these cases alive. Tamontez's grandmother is a force to be reckoned with, and she is not going to stop until she finds her grandson. And I don't blame her one bit. Her determination is absolutely astounding. She has searched homeless camps, walked through drug houses, been in alleys and searched trash cans, and even rode the bus across state lines into Kansas searching for her grandson. She has distributed over 2,000 flyers to anyone and everyone she comes across at the intersection of 77th and Truce, where Tamontez was last seen. Tacona has recruited such organizations as KC Discover and the Ad Hoc Group Against Crime to organize search efforts. In April 2024, while the organizations conducted a search around an area of foundation where an apartment building had burned down 3 years earlier near 81st and Truce, they found a bone that they thought resembled a human knee. Police were called and a search was conducted. They could not confirm nor deny that the bone found was in fact human. However, they did find a decomposing body in a vehicle located on the north side of the building. But volunteers and family, they wondered if the body could be that of Tamontez. However, after looking at flyers with Tamontez's picture on it, authorities felt pretty certain that the body was not that of Tamontez Hurt. Volunteers continue to walk alongside with Tacona Sullivan, knocking on doors, walking through abandoned houses in the area, and handing out flyers. Police have sifted through several hours of surveillance footage from businesses and parking areas in the area. Investigators continue to speak to business owners in the area where Tamontez was last seen and have handed out flyers to police departments in other cities where KCPD received tips, according to a KCPD spokeswoman. So, there's a lot of questions. There is a lot of questions that I'm sure police, with every case, they know way more than what they are letting out to the media. But that brings up a lot of questions like, okay, when police went to the home of whatever friend Tamontez was visiting and called the police from, or I guess actually his grandmother called the police, but they went to the house and got Tamontez. And Tamontez thought he had been drugged, obviously by someone in the house. And I'm sure the police talked to them. What was the situation? There was nothing at all that I could find that said anything about police talking to them and what their side of the story is. Does police think that they did try and give him something? I mean, I would think that would show up, though, in the urine screen. And it didn't. Nothing showed up. So that really kind of brings me to think that maybe he was having some kind of mental breakdown.
See, and that's hard, though, because it could have wore off by then. We don't know. I mean, and that's the thing. I mean, and I don't know his mental state, but that doesn't just happen one day. I mean, there's signs of something if you're having, some kind of mental breakdown or something that would make you talk in that way. His grandma would have seen these signs before, and this probably wouldn't have been an isolated incident.
No, and that's another question. That would be a question for his grandmother has he showed signs of something like this in the past? What made her think that he was having some kind of mental breakdown? There's no mention of whether or not this has happened before or something similar has happened before, or what's his past history with psychiatric problems, and has he been seeing anyone, or has he maybe never exhibited anything like this? There's just so many questions right now, but first and foremost, the most important thing is to find Tamontez. And I know his grandmother is just working herself frantically to try and get answers.
It's a really sad case that seems to have so many questions. You had mentioned that she talked to NBC News. I wonder if there's been any local coverage. That to me, NBC News, it would be national, so at least they got a little bit of coverage.
They are getting a little bit of national coverage, and yeah, it's national, and there's plenty of local coverage. The Kansas City Star is one that has covered it, and then a lot of the local news stations have covered it. But as far as any of the big shows like Dateline or 2020 or anything like that, I haven't seen anything on those stations yet. But, hopefully that will change. And hopefully more podcasts will create something on this case and just keep pushing it out there, because somebody knows what happened to this boy. Even if somebody knew what happened to him or saw what happened to him and want to report that, and maybe didn't necessarily, they weren't the ones that did something to them, or even if they were the ones that did something to them, you can call anonymously. This grandmother deserves to find out what happened to her grandson.
I definitely agree.
Tamontez Hurt is a 19-year-old African-American male. He is 6'1" and weighs 160 pounds. He has brown eyes and partially red dyed black hair, and was last seen wearing a royal blue Price Chopper polo shirt and green sweatpants. Anyone with information on his whereabouts is asked to call the Kansas City, Missouri Police Department Missing Persons Unit at area code 816-234-5043, or the Missouri State Highway Patrol Missing Person Unit at area code 866-362-6422. There is a $1,500 reward for info on Hurt's whereabouts. Thank you for listening to another episode of Gone in a Blink. We really love to hear your thoughts on the cases we cover, and it's always great to hear different views so that we can look at the case from all angles. So please feel free to comment on our social media sites, and don't forget to follow us on social media. You can find us on Facebook at Gone in a Blink, or on Instagram at Gone in a Blink Pod. And if you have an idea for a show, or you yourself have a loved one who is missing and would like for us to cover their case on our show, you can drop us an email at goneinablinkpod@gmail.com. And last but not least, please remember, be safe, be smart, and try not to blink.